Warning, you are about to witness some absolutely horrendous driving. If that, or billboards that look like this, offend you, please avert your eyes now. But please leave the video on so it helps the algorithm. Okay, thanks, bye. Hello friends, today we're doing something a little different. We're going to try and beat the original Gran Turismo without buying a single car. This is what I call an impossible challenge, and that I don't actually know if this is possible going in. I also haven't done a ton of research to know what kind of prize cars there are, etc. Perhaps for future impossible challenges I will do more research, but for this one, we're going to be starting it relatively blind. This is my longest video yet, but rather than just show you whether I succeeded or failed, I want to tell a story of how I tackled this challenge and the struggles I encountered. Now, if you're not familiar with Gran Turismo, or at least the older ones, you can get cars for free without actually owning a car, and you can do so by getting gold times on the license tests. That by itself makes starting this challenge feasible, and so that is where we must start. What does beating the game mean? I'm using speedrun rules. Any way I can see the credits basically means I've beaten the game. In this case, it's by beating the GT World Cup Championship. If we can do that, we've completed the challenge, but is this challenge even possible? As they say in content creation, there is only one way to find out. I play Gran Turismo 7 on a wheel. Unfortunately for me, I am forced to use a PlayStation controller for this challenge, and that, combined with not remembering many of the older tracks in this game, makes for an even steeper hill to climb. With all that said, let's jump straight in to the original Gran Turismo. Here's the main menu. The career mode used to be called simulation mode, and here is the main map. We're going to go straight to licenses, and oh, there's only 3 licenses in this game. B, A, and International A. They certainly expand on that in later games. Just a few tests. There's not 10, there's only 8, and we start with the classic start and stop with the Mazda Demio. Here is my first run. This test is very simple. You just accelerate, and then you reach a certain point, and you want to stop in the goal zone, if you will. That is right at the 1,000 meter board here. Now you can see this car is very slow, and so you won't have to brake that far in front of the 1,000 meter board, but as you can see, the graphics aren't very good. There's not really any way to pick out a good brake marker except for the lines on the road. And with me not knowing where to brake, my first attempt wasn't really that bad. 35,092. You can see that's silver. I'm thinking, okay, that's got to be close to gold, right? I mean, you wouldn't think they would space out gold, silver, and bronze all that much. So I try again, braking a little bit later, 34,855. Silver again. So this time I say, okay, I got silver again. Let me see what the gold time is. It's a 34,750, only a tenth off my best. So you would think, surely I can brake a little earlier and shave off a tenth, right? Right? Well, there was an attempt where I broke too early. And at this point, I was sick of changing from chase cam to bumper cam over and over again. You can actually configure that in this game. If you want to pause and check out the menus, there are some interesting menu choices. And here is what it looks like to go straight into bumper cam. I thought it was interesting that it goes straight through the car. Unfortunately, that setting change didn't really help me out all that much. And then 9 attempts later, that's right, 9, I got this run. Really, game? Really? Well, at this point, I was getting pretty annoyed with the fact that this was not as easy as I thought, and so I moved on to B2, which is the same thing but in a faster car. I figured if this was going to be difficult, I might as well get more attempts in. And so this is the GTO. In America, it is known as the 3000 GT. I believe it is the same car. This car is a little bit faster, and I didn't know where to brake with this car either, but I figured since it's faster, I would start at the 900 board. And I didn't know much about these license tests going in, but they're a little bit harder than I thought. Here we're going to brake right at the 900 board and see how it goes. and it's a 26,502, which is good enough for silver. So I thought, okay, here we go again. I get silver, and then I can't find gold. Gold is a 26,400. I need to knock off another 10th. But only 2 attempts later, unlike the Demio, we hit the break marker just in time with a 26,300, and we have our first gold time on the original Gran Turismo B license. So I was feeling a little bit better. Now we move on to B3, which is turn 1 at the original Deep Forest in a Honda Del Sol. So this is my first license that involves really cornering, and you can see in the bottom left of the screen there a little controller. That was my inputs using the controller that I had. So you can see accelerator is on X, the gear changes are on L2 and R2, very different today. And so I don't know anything about this, and you can see I am going granny mode through this corner. I don't know when to brake, I don't know when to turn in, I don't even really know how it feels. I'm just trying to feel this out. And my first attempt is a bronze 29.3. So I immediately go to the records, and I need to take out over a second from the first run. And as I show you a couple more Del Sol runs on this license, I just wanted to point out that, you know, X and square, they're basically on or off switches for the throttle. There is no modulation whatsoever, and there's no smoothing in the sticks really like there is in Gran Turismo 7, and so you're basically having a bunch of on and off commands for turning, accelerating, and braking, and that makes this very, very difficult to find the limit. It certainly makes it take a lot longer. After about 6 or 8 attempts with the Del Sol, we have another one. You can just tell it just doesn't look good. This is not how it would look if I was on a wheel, but I got fed up with this one, and I moved on to B5, which is the same as B3, just in the GTO. Once again, the thinking was, if I have to do this, I might as well do it in a faster car, because a lot of it for me at this point is not just getting repetitions, but also just getting a feel for the physics of the cars. Here, as we go into the turn, you can see I slide it just a little bit. It's really easy to like power slide cars in this game by accident, because a lot of it is really just the on-off, as our first run is a silver prize. And we go and check the records. 23.9 is only 3/10 off, and so I had a nasty slide, and so I'm thinking, you know what? I can gold this one. I can gold this. I can do 3/10 in that corner because I really, really messed it up. And so here we go on our second attempt. We're going to basically try and do the exact same thing again and see what happens. $23,937. It's silver again, and so I'm like, okay, how close was that to the gold again? Wait a minute. What is it with me in thousandths of a second? Anyway, we're going to try this one more time in the GTO, turn 1 at Deep Forest. 23,629, and we have our second gold in the B licenses. And you'll see me pause for a moment and realize that I skipped B4 on accident. So we're going to go back. It's the same thing as before, just with the Nissan Silvia. Here is my first run. 24.863, silver once again. Let's have a look at the records and see what the gold time is, and it's only a 24.8. Oh, okay. All right, yeah. I had a little bit of a slide. I think this will be easy. I should be able to get gold relatively quickly. So I want you to take a moment, as I'm showing you this second run, to have a guess, maybe leave a guess in the comments, how many attempts you think it took me to knock off less than a tenth from my very first time. Have a number? Good. It took me 25 more attempts. 25. This took me 15 real-life minutes, which may not sound very long, but each attempt is about 25 seconds. And so you can imagine, after 25 attempts, it feels like you've been doing it for 100,000 hours. But that is okay. We made it through. Here is my gold run. A 24,790, and that is our third gold prize of the B licenses. Next up is the Mitsubishi FTO, which never made it to the States, I don't think. A really neat looking car. Through the S's at the High Speed Ring. One of my favorite tracks from Gran Turismo history. So glad to see it in Gran Turismo 7. Rather than bore you with the 3 attempts that I did, here is my third attempt. A 26,339, that is good for the gold prize, and yes, I admit I inadvertently bonked the wall. This session was not perfect. It's something I'm trying to avoid, if at all possible. I admit my driving was not the cleanest, even though my intentions were to try and be clean. But before I go any more on that, here is my first attempt on B7. A 25,652, and that's good enough for gold on our first try with a controller on original Gran Turismo. All right, now we're talking. So we go on to the next challenge, the final test of B license. It is 1 lap on the high-speed ring in the Mazda, whatever you want to call it, MX-5, Miata, Unos Roadster. And not exactly the car I would have picked for this track, but in any case, I want to go back real quick while you're seeing the first attempt at this and just point out, this is unfamiliar physics on a controller. There are some mistakes, like I showed in the FTO video. Sometimes I bump a wall. My very best effort is to not do anything like wall ride or just blatantly take out the AI. Although we'll get to the AI a little bit later. But I just want to point out, I'm doing my absolute best to be clean, because being clean is important to me. I mean, it's my integrity, and not just my integrity, as you see that I completely screw up the S's. And now we're going to try again. And, you know, I want not just my integrity, but I am also part of Apex Hunter Racing, and the team is very important to me. So whenever I put out content, I want to put out content not just with my own name, DJ Brohawk, in mind, but also Apex Hunter Racing. And so you'll see, there's a reason. The warning in the beginning was not entirely a joke. There are some moments where I drive like an absolute just like I've never picked up a controller to do a racing game in my life. That's just how it was. That's how difficult this was. And I know we're 15 minutes into this video and we are on the final test with everything golded except for 2 of the first 3 and this one, as I almost get another off-track failure again going through the S's here. It's just, this is tough. You know, it was a really tough challenge to get through these license tests, and I'm not even done. I have no idea what car even waits me at the end of this thing. And usually the car is not all that good, and so it's entirely possible I'm going to have to do this again for the A license. But before we go any further there, let's see what time we get for our first full lap of the high-speed ring, a 1:19.039, and that is a gold. Our first full lap is a gold, and so we only have 2 tests left to get all golds and get a mystery car. But these 2 in particular were exceptionally hard. These 2 in particular, the first and the third one, as we show you another attempt at the Del Sol, these were very hard. They just were. This car being so slow, it's all about conserving momentum through this corner. It has no power. And so usually when the car is underpowered like this, any loss of momentum loses you gobs of time. And you can see here, I'm trying to push it. I'm trying to push the car. And I need to find what the limit is so that I can try and lower this time. Because otherwise, I'm going to keep ramming my head into a wall, figuratively speaking, until I either luck into it or I end up watching a guide. And so, we're going to play the number guessing game again. This attempt right here, how many more attempts do you think it took for me to get a gold time in this combination? Get a number in your mind. Think about it. Maybe leave a comment once again. How many times do you think it took after this attempt right here for me to get the gold time? See, I've gotten silver again. I'm getting faster, so surely I'm getting close, right? See, I'm only 1/10.5 off. How many times? Have a number again? Good. Because the answer is I don't know. You see, I didn't get it for the rest of the time I played Gran Turismo. And so for the next 27 attempts after the one I pointed out just before, I tried in vain to get the gold time. By the time I gave up, I had been going about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and even though it wasn't that long in real life time, whenever you do something 27 times or more in this case, you start to get frustrated with it. So, at the end of day 1 of attempting this challenge, I had all but 2 of the B licenses golded. That's a new word, golded. And from there, I decided I would watch a guide as to how to gold this because I just could not get this to go any faster. So I came back, I think it was actually later that day, it wasn't the next day. And I had watched a guide and I found a YouTube video of a fellow that did gold on every license test in this game on the first attempt, which I thought was absolutely insane. But it taught me a little trick, and you'll see as we go and try again with the Del Sol, I've learned a little bit more about how to conserve momentum, a little bit of a dab of the brakes, and then you whip the car into the apex. I got it wrong that time, but you can see what I'm trying to do. I was doing a lot of lifting before, trying to lift and just coast into the corner. That's not going to work. I'm going to have to dab the brake and dart the car into the apex, maintaining hopefully about 66 miles an hour, and that should be good enough to get us up the hill and in for a gold time. Real quick, before we jump ahead, I want to show you a little something funny about the original Gran Turismo. This was a much better attempt. This ended up being a 28-2, less than a tenth away from gold, but it gave me the bronze prize. The way Gran Turismo works is that the top 3 times are what are the gold, silver, and bronze prize, so no matter what your time is, if it's the 3rd fastest time, even if it's 3 1,000ths off the gold time, it's still the bronze prize, which I thought was interesting. And then on my 6th attempt after watching the guide, after at least 40 attempts of trying to figure it out on my own, I got this run. It's a 28-135, and we have golded B3. We are 1 license test away from all golds. And then, on my very first Demio attempt, we get this run. It's a 34-4, and that is the gold for B1. We've golded all of the B tests. We have a car. But what car is it? It's just called Concept Car. Oh, it's the Dodge Concept Car. And look, 213 horsepower, 2,160 pounds. Hey, this car might actually be usable. And so from here, you may see me clicking around the menus and things like that. Here is where the strategy of this challenge starts to come into play. I'm looking at the GT League, and I mouse over the GT World Cup. That's what we need to beat. I know from having played Gran Turismo in my childhood that this concept car is not fast enough, but I need to figure out what is it that it can do that can give me a better car, that can lead me into a car that can win the GT World Cup. First things first, I need my other 2 licenses, and I'm not going to show you all of that. I was just aiming for bronze, and since I got bronze on everything, I really just wanted to be able to race whatever I wanted to race. And so I know the first order of business is let's do the Sunday Cup, which is always the easiest thing in Gran Turismo. I know the Dodge concept car should be fast enough to handle this without any problem, and it was 3 very easy races, and so I won't spend a lot of time on those, other than I completed it, and at the end we got our own Demio for our troubles. And here is really where the strategy of this challenge and the difficulty of this challenge comes into play. I have a car, I don't have a ton of credits to upgrade the car. It's possible that I might need to get gold on either the A or the IA or both licenses to get better cars. All of these options are viable, and so what I ended up doing is I ended up doing a little bit of research to see what prize cars were out there for the events, and I discovered that there were a number of options, but not that many that the Dodge concept car could enter. And so I settled on the normal car World Speed Contest. And now you see we're doing qualifying, which I don't remember what all the older Gran Turismos did. Gran Turismo 7 does not do this. And so it was a little interesting to have to do a quali lap from a stand start, and you only get 1, which I thought was really, really interesting. So here we are at Autumn Ring Mini, which, by the way, really wish they would bring Autumn Ring back. For our first lap in the normal car contest, or whatever it was called. Normal car means that it cannot have any modifications whatsoever. No tires. I almost went the wrong way. Gee, I'm off to a great start, right? 42.9 is the finish, our first lap around here. Didn't really remember this circuit and didn't do any practice. Let's see where that puts us. That puts us P4 a second and a half behind. It was not a great lap, and I didn't really remember the circuit, so okay, this might be doable. The entry list, I didn't show it in this video, at least not yet. It felt like the power to weight ratios were close enough that I could win this with some proper driving. Of course, there has not been much proper driving, yet anyway. But I wanted to check out my other options. There were a couple of other options. You can see the B license ones, the FF, FR, four-wheel drive, lightweight. The prize cars for that didn't look all that appealing. They didn't seem all that good, and so I pretty much ruled those out. But the Clubman Cup had a car that might be usable, and so I wanted to see how the Dodge concept car stacked up to the cars inside the Clubman Cup. Of course, this also includes my relative lack of original Gran Turismo memory and skill. We take a look at the entry list. I'm a little underpowered. The FTO has about 40 more horsepower and weighs the same. I think I might be a little underpowered for this, but we will give one qualification lap a go and see where we end up. And as we fast forward to the end of the lap, it is a 1:28.4. Let's see how that ranks us in the field of 6. Ooh, 6 seconds behind. Yeah, Clubman Cup's not going to work, at least not in the way that I'd hope. So I have a couple choices. I can either tune up the concept car, which ruins the chance at the normal car cup, or I try and do the normal car cup and hope that my driving skill, or whatever skill I have in this game, can overcome the potential car deficiency to win a prize car that will significantly boost my chances of making this challenge possible. Here we are back at Autumn Ring Mini. I've pretty much resigned myself to its normal cup. It's not normal cup or bust. I think Clubman Cup is an option, but I want to try this first. Knowing the gap between my car and the AI cars isn't that big. You can see I'm struggling a little bit around this track. So easy to power slide these cars. I mentioned it before. And plus, I still haven't really warmed up to the physics. A little bit of an off track there. Remember, I warned you you'd see some horrendous driving. Well, here it is. Here's one small example. There will be plenty more, I'm sure, if I allow it to be seen by the general public. So we're almost to the finish line now. It's not normal cup or bust, but knowing what car I can get from winning this, it was the most appealing option. It seemed like the best way for me to move forward in this challenge. So you'll see here, P4, 1.2 seconds behind. That's a pretty big amount for a small track like this, but I had a lot of errors, and so I thought, well, maybe I can use race pace to catch up and overcome the AI. I had a lot of mistakes. If I can just keep it clean, should be okay. So here we are at the start of the race. We're going to give this another try. Autumn Ring Mini 2, and back in old Gran Turismo days, the track name and then 2 meant it was in reverse. They don't do that anymore. Starting in P4, just trying to get a feel for it. It is 5 laps, and so we have plenty of time to dip inside the TRD 3000 GT. Interestingly enough, this 3000 GT is not the Mitsubishi GTO, it is the TRD 3000 GT, which has to do with the Supra. Are you confused yet? Good. As you can see ahead, we have a green NSX as I get bumped off the track by the red RX-7 AI. The AI in this game really likes to pretend that the human is not there, and that is one of many, many examples that I have in my footage where the AI would just bulldoze me off the track. And it took a lot to not just bulldoze them back, but I felt like if I'm going to do a challenge like this, I have to try and do it as legitimately as possible, given the situation. And so I know a couple things. I am faster than this RX-7 because I was able to pass them earlier, and I will eventually catch them again. You can see I'm catching them right now. Try and dip down the inside. Look, I gave a revenge punt. I'm a terrible, dirty driver. Again, I did warn you there'd be some horrendous driving. But my rationale on this was if I have to restart every single time I go off track or inadvertently bump the AI, especially with the AI bashing me every now and again, this would take me weeks. And so I felt, well, since the AI doesn't try to like actively avoid me and I'm not just diving, you know how people do where they just go full speed into the back of the AI and don't brake or anything, as long as I'm making a legitimate attempt to drive within reason, then that's within the spirit of this challenge, especially because this challenge is so difficult. But talking about the race, you can see that there's a green NSX in front of me, and as we jump ahead to the end of the race, you can see that the NSX has thoroughly beaten me. I still felt at this point I was warming up to the game, warming up to the tracks, etc. And so I felt like the NSX might pose a problem, but I wasn't sure. And so now we are going to go on to the second race, which is Grand Valley East backwards. And before I talk about the race, I just want to mention that in Gran Turismo 7, and it really makes me feel like... But anyway, that's a story for another video. As we carry on with the lap here, I haven't done this track a lot in Gran Turismo 7, and therefore I don't really know what braking points are or what the track even is. I'm just really sussing this out, which in a challenge like this probably is not the best way to go about things. I probably should have done some practice, but I felt like my car was competitive enough that if I could just keep it close, I would eventually learn the track in 5 to 10 laps. Maybe I wouldn't get it right this time, but I would get it right in the future close enough to where I wouldn't be spending forever on it if I could get it right. And as we slide around the final corner, one thing I want to point out before we get to what time I got, this game has built-in counter steer assistance, which I thought was really interesting. It's actually very hard to crash these cars once they get to about a 30-degree angle. I thought that was pretty interesting. As we cross the line, it's a 1:16.486. Where does that put us on the grid? P4 again, only 1.1 seconds behind, and that was not a great lap once again. I don't know how Gran Turismo calculates these laps, but in any case, we're going to start the race and see if once again we can maybe make up some ground. Now, this is a 5-race championship, and so because the difference between first and second is 3 points, I need to do more winning than not. So the race starts, and we are off behind the 3 usual suspects, the RX-7, the Fancy Supra, and the NSX. As we go around the first corner, I want to point something out that you will watch in a moment. You can see the RX-7 goes off the track, and I nearly go off the track as well. Something that gave me hope, that made me feel this challenge was possible. Look at the Supra taking a really poor line, and I'm able to duck down underneath. I might have given him a bump. But the AI on this track is not any good. It takes really poor lines. It just doesn't really drive all that well. But the NSX is a problem, and then I crash and I decide, well, this is done. I came in second in race 1. I probably won't win now in race 2. I just need to restart. One thing that's interesting about Gran Turismo, and one thing I was really hoping was the case here, the AI cars in this pull from a pool of cars, and so it's not the same every time. That NSX was a problem. I don't know that I could keep up with it, or I would have to drive perfectly, which may be possible, but would take me a really long time. And so I was hoping maybe if I reset this enough times, I will get a series of cars that do not have the NSX, because I was beating everything else. Or at least I was passing everything else. So you can see the NSX is in the entry list. I skip qualifying. I skip the race. And so we try again. Let's see what the entry list is. And look, there's no NSX. And so now I'm thinking, oh man, I might be able to pull this off. And so now we start attempt number 2. I guess technically 3 because we just backed out of the second one because there was an NSX. This is attempt number 2. And as we jump ahead to the finish, you've seen this qualification already, and I am in P2, less than a tenth behind the AI. Now it's like you can see where this might be possible. I wasn't sure with the NSX, but now we have a legitimate shot to at least win this race. There's still 4 more, but we have to start by winning the ones we can win easily. So, can we pull this off? Here we go. We do a nice little switcheroo on the Supra, and we are off. So the kicker, not that you'll see great examples of this in my driving, but the kicker to driving an underpowered light car as opposed to going against heavier, more powerful cars is that you really have to conserve the momentum with these lighter cars. And if you can do that, you can use the agility of the car in the corners to build a gap that the heavier cars just can't overcome. I forget who it was that said this, but if you want to get faster in a straight line, add more horsepower. If you want to get faster everywhere, reduce the weight. And we have the advantage of being a much lighter car, even though we are a little underpowered comparatively, and that allows us to drive off into the distance. And as we jump ahead to the finish, I finished P1 only a couple of seconds ahead of the Supra. So I won. It wasn't really that close. The AI has a little bit of rubber banding so that it'll become more apparent later. But the AI kind of sticks around even if you're crazy out driving them. But we got a bunch of credits, which is important for if we need to upgrade the car. And also we got a win. And so we know that with the situation at hand, we can win race 1 as long as there's no NSX. So you may be thinking at this point, well, okay, DJ won that pretty easily. He's got this well in hand. Well, there are still 4 races left. And this may not go the way that you think, or the way that I think. But we have to take care of business. Let's qualify at Grand Valley East backwards. We jump ahead to the end of qualifying. It's a 1:17.3, almost a full second slower than my last attempt at it. And uh-oh, I'm in P6, and I'm 2 seconds off the pace. The lap was not great, but that's still a lot of time to be off the pace. And so I know the AI is bad here because I saw it, and the TRD 3000 GT Supra happens to be quite heavy. And so I think that will play into my favor with the AI not being very good. So I'm not super worried about that, but being this far off the pace is still a little concerning because I have to pass all these cars and I want to try and do it as cleanly as possible. And there could be carnage because the AI doesn't really do well on this track, at least not in this direction. So let's see what happens. Turn 1. Look, 2 cars off the track. The RX-7 comes around. I barely dodge it, barely get on the brakes in time to avoid the Impreza. Looking around, I hear the RX-7. There it is. See? It just nudged me off the track. There was nothing I could do there. The Impreza goes off the track. You can see this is carnage. This is why I want to start up front as we go into the tight hairpin. I almost hit the RX-7. Look, they're taking each other out. I got that corner wrong a lot. With these slidey cars and not knowing where to brake, it was just very hard to get that right. So now we go toward the final hairpin side by side with the RX-7. Look at the Impreza getting into the wall off the track. The AI was doing that a lot. It was just sliding into that wall a lot. So I knew even though I was a ways behind the Supra, it would be doing that in future laps. So I wasn't too terribly concerned. And right on cue later on in that lap, that same corner, you can see the Supra hits the wall and loses all kinds of momentum. and now we are right next to them. We go on the outside, but we brake wrong and slide into the corner, and the Supra takes the position back. But here's something that'll matter a little bit later on, the toe. The toe in this game is extremely strong. You can see I'm keeping up with the Supra, who has, I think, 100 horsepower on me at least. I accidentally bump into the back of him, but you can watch. I'm going to go way faster here than I was in the previous lap. Look, they can't get away. 150 miles an hour. Go to the inside, brake early. I have the space. I make the corner. Supra goes off the track like the AI did a lot. I end up getting that corner wrong. But the Supra stays behind me, and now maybe if I can get this bit right, I can start to pull away as we jump ahead to that special corner the AI doesn't like. You can see I've developed a bit of a gap, and then here I'm going to look back, and yep, that's a big gap to the AI. And then as we go to the end of the race, I was completely unthreatened by the Supra here. So we have 2 wins in 2 races. Suddenly, this is feeling like it might be possible. But again, 3 races to go, and I haven't made it this far in my playthrough so far, so I don't remember what comes next in terms of the track list, but nothing to do but just keep trying. Next on the list is Clubman Stage Route 5 Reverse. One thing about the older Gran Turismo games, I don't really understand why they never brought these tracks to Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 6 is the only one of the mainline games I never played, so I don't really know why Gran Turismo doesn't have this special stage, Route 5, special stage, Route 11. Don't know why they don't have those tracks in every game. They already own the tracks. I don't see why they wouldn't put them in there unless they just feel like it wouldn't make for good racing. This is more of a speed track. I thought maybe this section would be good for me. Here we get that hairpin right. This track is very simple, but there are a lot of high-speed sections, which does concern me when it comes to the AI Supra. But in any case, nothing we can do except do our best. We are going to come across the start-finish line in a 102.960. Now, where does that put us in the field of 6? Wow. P6, 2.5 seconds behind. I felt like I did okay, all things considered, with me not really knowing the track. Even though it's simple, you can still gain speed on tracks you've just started racing on. 2.5 seconds is a lot. It's a lot, and it's a little concerning because this is a 5-race championship, and I need to win 3 of the 5 and come in second the other 2, or I probably won't win. So here we go. Lap 1 of Clubman Stage Route 5 in reverse. As you can see, I get that all kinds of wrong and absolutely slam the AI. And then I end up probably losing more time than I gained from it, even though the AI that I hit is now long into the distance. So that one was on me. That was my bad. I talked about trying to be clean. There were just moments where I took out the AI or something completely unintentionally. But we carry on. As you can see, I'm not doing too well so far. I'm still in P5. The concept car not looking too hot at this point in the race, but there are still 4 laps to go, and anything could happen as I bounce off the GTR. We bounce off of each other, and it ends up conceding the position to me. Still P4, still a long way to go. The toe, once again, very strong here. Something happened up front, and then there's absolute chaos as I can't see the braking point and absolutely bulldoze into the RX-7 and whoever that was in P4. I'm not exactly sure what car that was. It took me a while to warm up to this track because I can't see. I couldn't see anything. I mean, you can see the graphics, right? They're terrible. It's all, pixely, and I didn't know where a good braking point was. And so I got that first corner wrong a number of times. And you'll see on the mini-map in the bottom left, the carnage in turn 1 has gotten a car stuck, which I thought was pretty funny. But don't you worry, if you're upset with how I've been handling this track, I think you'll like what's going to happen in a couple of races. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. As you can see now, I'm way behind. And I'm getting turn 1 wrong. Look, I'm slamming into the wall. I'm not trying to wall ride or anything like that. It's just that I don't know where to brake. And I was trying to figure this out as I'm racing, which is a really bad strategy, by the way. Not doing any test laps and trying to figure this out for yourself. Not really a good strategy. As we fast forward ahead to the end of the race, I was able to gain a little bit of time on the Supra, but ultimately could not catch them. I finished a little under 2 seconds behind, which is noteworthy for later. So, 2 first places and a second. As I said before, I need to win 3 and come in second twice, and then I would be the champion of this series. But can we do it? Up next is the original Deep Forest Reverse. If you are relatively new to Gran Turismo or your first experience was Gran Turismo 7, this Deep Forest may look a little different. That's because the long back straight does not have a hairpin at the end. It has a much wider turn. I like this version better, personally. The version with the hairpin is okay, but I don't know. It just feels like it flows and is a little faster, but that is one fewer passing opportunity than the new one has. So there may be some merit to that. But just like the last race, no real practice on this one, just kind of throwing the car around the track, which in hindsight, considering how I said this challenge was difficult, maybe not the smartest thing, but in any case, you go around the left-hander, there'll be another left-hander. You can see, if you've played Gran Turismo 7, you can see the inspiration for the new version. Like, you can see how the layout is very similar. This, of course, looks a lot older, but the corners through this middle sector here, they all look kind of familiar, even if the scenery has been updated a few times since then. Coming around what is turn 1 the normal way, I get it a little wrong and have to bleed some speed. Probably not going to be a great lap, but as we approach the finish line, we will see where this puts us on the grid with a 130.312. Ouch. 2.8 seconds behind. And that lap wasn't great, but again, you can see the problem forming here. Starting P6 again, I have to work my way through the AI again, and I still have to win one more race. So it's either got to be this one or the next one. I'm running out of opportunities, or I'm going to have to try and do this again. As we jump ahead to the middle of the first lap, here's another example of what I mean when the AI just doesn't care about you. The Subaru, I'm already practically off the track. The Subaru just bounces off of me and tries to run me even further off the track. Then we're going to come around this left-hander, and the car behind me is going to get a bit of a run and just kind of push me off into the side, and eventually concedes the position back. This is what I mean when I say I didn't feel too bad about any time I made a little contact with the AI, because they were just going full NASCAR, full Ricky Bobby on me in these races. And while I tried to be clean, once again, the Subaru hit me in the back as they did a little bit of a switcheroo. The AI was very good at switcheroos, by the way, in this game. So, P4 after lap 1, this is already not looking promising, and so now I need to try and salvage whatever I can going into the last race. As we jump ahead to the end of the race, you'll see I finished P2. I had a really good battle with the AI RX-7 that lasted about 2 laps. It was a really good back and forth battle before I eventually was able to pass them on the backstretch on lap 4. As you can see, me and the Supra are tied going in to the final race of the championship. I have no idea what track it is, at least at the time, but as we'll see in a moment, it's Special Stage Route 11. Here's my qualifying session. I actually did one lap of the test run because I remember This track being very, very technical, very complicated, and I could not remember it at all. I don't think even in the license test or the previous driving I had done that I had done this track, and so I wanted a little bit of a primer before I just tackled the course. And I thought, well, this track probably benefits me over the Supra because it is so tight and twisty pretty much the entirety of the track except for the front stretch. So I thought that this benefited me, but I wasn't really sure. If you've never seen this track before, it's quite something. It is, I think it would make for an interesting Mazda touring car type car if they brought this into Gran Turismo 7. I think it would be kind of a fun, smaller, sporty club car track. I don't know that a Group 3 race would be good here in its current iteration. I mean, look at this bus stop type thing. I mean, if you get this wrong at all, you're going to crash. Your race is over, basically. And there's not really more than a car's width to be able to go through there. And it's just hairpin and chicane after hairpin and chicane. I think it almost feels like Gran Turismo's version of a big, what do they call that when you race around in a parking lot? Autocross. It's almost like it's a big autocross track. And this corner right here, you can see I kind of get it right. I got this corner wrong a lot. And here's a fun fact for you. Take a look at the mini map. I'm going around this corner, the next hairpin coming up. Tell me what you see. It looks like a long straight, right? Well, you would be surprised at what awaits you halfway down this little stretch here if you didn't already know, because this little kink in the straight is actually a chicane. And when I drove around this track in the test run, I had no idea and slammed into the wall. Well, that was pretty entertaining at the very least. So you can see my fastest lap was a 2:21. That was, I don't know how good that was. You can see that my lap here is actually a little bit slower. 2:21.8. Laps are long, which means that it's possible that, I have plenty of time to try and win the race. And then I realized I was 5.5 seconds behind. 5.5 seconds. That's not good. That's not good at all. That I'm that far behind the AI on a track that I thought benefited my car. But all I can do is try and see if I can keep up and maybe sneak a miracle win. But first, we have to get past all the other cars before we can get up into P1, so let's see what happens as we go into the first right-hander. I know it's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to try and do some late braking to gain time as I try that. A little bit of carnage going on. The R33 Skyline actually took their friend out. I barely sneaked through the chicane, and now we're up into P4. All right, P1 hasn't gotten away yet. A little love tap to the Impreza. I try to give it space. I feel like that was relatively clean, all things considered. Now we go into this right-hand hairpin, and the Impreza decides to get me back. Little attempt at a push to pass. Maybe that's where people in Gran Turismo 7 learned it from. Here we go into this left-hander, and folks, the karma you were looking for all the times that I hit the AI is about to happen right now. And I quit out. I decided I couldn't come back, knowing the difference between me and the AI's qualifying time. I quit out and called it a day. It was like 2 a.m. at this point. So I came back and I decided to focus on Clubman Stage Route 5 Reverse because I had finished so close to the Supra before, I thought it would be a good time to do a time trial. And I won't show you all this. You've seen the track. We're going to go right back in and try this again, although it doesn't look like I've seen the track before at that corner. We're going to go right back to trying the normal cup again. I feel like I can do this. I have 2 wins pretty much guaranteed. I just need to win 1 more. Can I do it? And as we skip ahead to the end of race 1, you've seen this already. It was an easy win for me at Autumn Ring Mini. And then we're going to skip ahead to the end of race 2. I showed you that before. Another easy win for me. The AI just cannot handle this track. same story. I think these first 2 races, I pretty much have them in the bag. Now, we go on to Club and Stage Route 5, where I show you the end of qualifying. I'm still P6, but I'm only a second behind, and I think, okay, that's probably close enough. I can probably make it up in race pace if I just have clean laps. So, can we have clean laps? Here we go. Starting P6. Can we make it happen? We're going to jump ahead a little bit to the end of lap 1. I'm up to P3, although I did not have a great first lap, but here is where the tow is so powerful. Look at how I come flying up on the RX-7, and now I know where to brake as I give him a little bit of a nudge. I still kind of get it slightly wrong, and he's going to do a switcheroo on me. I at least wasn't slamming into the wall this time. I turn into the RX-7, and I actually get it wrong and slam into the wall and lose a bunch of time, and I'm thinking, oh no. Here we go again. I've just given up a bunch of time, and the Supra is driving away with it. But I get this technical section really well and manage to cut under the skyline and almost over the RX-7, and now I'm right back behind the RX-7. I give him a little tap because he dabbed the brakes there. This corner right here, the final corner, I was gaining tons of time on the AI. I was able to take this much faster than them, and I was able to take a really nice line through there. And now I have the Supra in my sights with 3 laps to go. And as we fast forward to the end of the lap, you can see what I mean. The Supra takes a really wide line. I'm able to hold the inside, and I just gain a little bit of time, a little bit of time. The Supra has to give up some speed, and now I am flying past the Supra and into P1 going into lap 4. The Supra, the AI, is not smart enough to get behind you and get the tow. And so if you're careful, you can manage to avoid it for the most part. As I go into turn 1 and the Supra is right behind me, I end up giving it a little bit of a bump. The mirror is not the world's most accurate thing. I leave it space on the outside, and now we go into the S's. If I can pull away, I can win this race, and then coming in P2 is much, much easier and much more feasible in the other 2 races. Going around this tight right-hander, now we go into the final corner where I'm going to gain gobs of time on the Supra. Here we go. Around this sweeping right-hander, about 90 to 91 miles an hour. I can just hold the stick to the right and hold down the throttle for the most part. Make it easy. And we're gone. Look, you can see on the mini-map that green dot to the right of the red dot is the Supra. And I am flying away with it now. This could be it. This could be our chance. And as we fast forward ahead to the end of the race, you can see I am P1. We won the race. I made an egregious mistake mid-lap, and the Supra was able to gain all of the time back that I had gained on it, but I managed to hold it just a tenth. That close to blowing it, but we survived, and now I only need 2 second-place finishes, and we will win the normal cup. And as we fast forward ahead to the end of the Deep Forest race, you can see I finished P2. The Supra finished well off into the distance, but I was well ahead of P3. This is what I anticipated. This is what I wanted. Deep Forest was not a great track for me, but with my 3 wins, I only need to come in second place, and the other 4 cars are so much worse than the Supra. It's setting up for the last race at Special Stage Route 11 for me to come in second place and finish this off and finally move on with the challenge. But first, we have to conquer the beast that is Special Stage Route 11. Here we go. 5 laps. This race will be about 10 or 11 minutes long, and of course I'm starting P6 because the AI just qualifies really, really well compared to its race pace. Going into the first tight section of the track, I give the R33 space, and I think the AI got it wrong. Now I'm into P5. The Skyline slams on brakes. I don't normally brake through there, so that's why I hit them there. I dive down the inside. I give them a little bit of a tap. Then I dive, get under the Impreza, and now we're into P3. I'm driving very aggressively because I know if I don't, the RX-7 and the Supra may get away. I don't think there was anything too egregious there. Certainly nothing worse than the AI's done to me throughout this whole ordeal. Now we go through a light left-hander, then a slightly tighter one, and now the dreaded bus stop. Here is my first trip to the bus stop. I tap the wall just a hair. Here we go. Deep breath. And we survive. Only have to do that 4 more times. Here in P3, all I care about is P2. So, all we need to do is get past the RX-7, who makes a huge mistake hitting the wall, and I get past. Now I'm in P2. Can I drive away with this thing? I almost hit the wall. I'm not concerned with the Supra at all. Can we finish this off? And as we skip ahead to the end of the race, the answer is yes. We were able to hold on to P2, and we are the Normal Cup champions. Now, there is a small catch to this, in that the prize pool of cars can be one of 2 cars. One of them probably won't help. The other is the ticket to winning this challenge. So, what car did we get? Time to find out. It's the Supra. It's the car we wanted. And this, friends, is the car that will conquer this challenge. We did it. We conquered the challenge. Could we beat the original Gran Turismo without buying a single car? And we did it. There's not much more to say, honestly. I knew when I looked up the prize cars that if I could get the Supra with the way that the old Gran Turismos work, I had a chance. I just needed to get the Supra, and I felt like the cars, the gift cars that came from the licenses, one of them would be good enough. The other 2 weren't really all that much better. The A license one is the TRD 3000 GT Supra, and the international A license one was a Nismo, I believe it was the 400R Skyline. Ultimately, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary. It was a very tough challenge. It really was. I know this video has gone on long enough. We're going on over an hour, and it was tough. You know, the licenses were way harder to gold than I thought. Using the concept car without being able to improve its performance was tough. You know, planning it all out, it was something that was a lot of fun, but it was also very, very tough. When you beat the game, you get hi-fi mode for a couple of tracks, which is just a free run session at 60 frames per second, as opposed to the normal 30. Thought that was pretty cool. Other than that, not much more to say on this video. If you've made it all the way through, thank you so much for watching. Please do leave me some feedback in the comments. It really does help me figure out how to improve the channel. Did you like this challenge? Should I do more challenges like it? Was this video too long? Was it just right? Did I tell the story well? Things like that. Anything like that feedback-wise you can give me. It is all appreciated and valued. If you don't mind, leave a like on your way out. And as for what's next, who knows? Gran Turismo 2? Until next time, my friends. See ya!